Today, everyone, I would like to welcome Rev Marie Kirkland to today's show. She's the founder of Living Aligned Ministry. She's the contributing author to Speaking Your Truth. She's a minister, a practitioner, a busy lady, and she does a lot of work with the Centers for Spiritual Living. And I'd just like to welcome you, Rev Marie. How are you?
I am great. Thank you so much for having me today. I have been looking forward to our conversation, and it's just a joy to be here with you.
Yes, me too.
Yeah.
Me too. I'm so excited to have you here. First of all, of course, I want to congratulate you on your installation as a minister. I attended the event in Fayetteville with your wonderful friends and family. It was a beautiful event, so congratulations on that.
Thank you. Thank you. You know, it was just that next step on the spiritual journey.
Yeah.
It's, that marriage with the community and with me as minister. It was a wonderful event. Yeah.
Yes, it was.
Thank you for being there.
Yes, it was my pleasure. So, Rev Marie, I like to often ask my guests about their spiritual journey and that sort of thing. And I'm always very interested in how my guests found New Thought or were introduced to it or that sort of thing. So can you just tell the viewers a little bit about your background as far as what faith tradition, you grew up on, let's say, and how did you find New Thought?
Wow. So, it's a wonderful journey, and I love the different stages of and the different paths I took. And so growing up, although my grandfather, who I didn't know, my mother's father, I know that he was a minister, a Baptist minister, and we went to church a little bit, when I was young. And when I became a teenager, what I did was I was drawn to the different faiths. I was drawn to Buddhism, and I was drawn to Hinduism, and I was a seeker.
Wow.
And so I knew what I knew, but I didn't know that other people knew and felt what I knew. And when my thought was growing up and as a young adult, that there is only one God, and the idea that there was something that seemed to be exclusive, that if you are not doing this, then this will not happen, And so that I didn't connect with that. I didn't align with that. It didn't feel right for me. So, and what I'm speaking of is in traditional teachings, traditional religions, right?
Okay. Yes.
So my husband, he knew that I was seeking something, and he saw an article about Agape International Spiritual Center in the newspaper. And I think it may have been like 2001 in USA Today. And I seen it and I read it and I'm like, oh my goodness, here they are. This is my tribe. This is what I had been looking for. And what I did was I went and I called them and I got some information. They sent me a welcome packet, and I began receiving their at that time it was cassettes and their cassettes, and just really embraced it. And I looked for something here in North Carolina.
And that was Michael Beckwith's organization?
That was Michael Beckwith, right. Agape International Spiritual Center in California. And so what I did was I looked for something here in North Carolina. And in North Carolina, and I'm in Fayetteville, there was something in Raleigh, and at that time in Wilmington, Charlotte, Asheville, and Durham. All locations that are at a distance from myself.
Yes.
Right. And so, I looked and I saw it. So I reached out, and then it took a while for me to get to Raleigh. Right. And my grandmother, she had made her transition. And when I tell you that it was a pivotal time in my life, and it really affected me, it was almost as if her last breath, her ancestral breath, was like my first breath, into a new life. And I had Well, let me not forget to share that I had retired from the military.
Oh, yes,
Right.
yes.
So I was in that transition from one way of being and living for 20 years and
Mhm.
then stepping into who I am and who I was becoming. And so there was that alignment going on as well. And so we went, myself and my two young children at that time, they're young adults now. We went to up to what was the Center for Conscious Living in Raleigh.
Okay.
And when I walked in the door, and it is now the Triangle Center for Spiritual Living.
Right.
And when I walked in the door, I immediately knew that I was home.
Wow.
And the teachings, it was the teachings and the reading and the reading of the Ernest Holmes books. And what I discovered upon going there and looking at the bookstore is that a lot of the books I had already read. So I was already on the journey and on the path without knowing that there was a teaching. Yeah,
Wow.
that
Yeah. It's
fulfilled it. So
almost
yeah.
like since you had those books even prior to that, it's
Mm-hmm.
like, and that has happened to me too, where, um, I'm reading something or I'm become aware of something and maybe I'm not fully immersed in it yet, or I don't even
Mm-hmm.
fully understand it yet there's something that's speaking the truth about it.
Yes.
So that can
Yes.
happen too. And then I bet this has happened to me when I years later look at those books or whatever, they have a whole new meaning. You know,
Yes.
you're like, wow, I read
Yes.
those books. Let me possibly read them again, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
I have done that.
deeper meaning.
Right. I have read the books and I open them up and I'll see that the books I have in the margins I'm writing, they're I have highlighted areas. And at the same time, I know that I read them, but they feel extremely new.
New, right?
Why? Because I'm new.
Yes,
Because
yes,
I'm a different person than I was at that time. Yeah.
yes. And
So
our understanding is always deepening, right?
it is. So what brought me to this teaching was a period of being out of alignment and to seek what was seeking me. It found me and I found it. And it was perfect.
Yeah, so it's like, because I know the word or the concept of alignment is your calling almost. That's what
It is.
you do. And so how would you describe that when you feel out of alignment? And then what does when you are either trying to get into alignment or you're back into alignment? What does that feel like when you're not in alignment and when you are in alignment?
Ah, I love it. It is, you can feel it. And the reason why you can feel it is that there is something that speaks to you. For each of us, I believe that there is a path to discovery.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so that path of discovery will show up when you're out of alignment in different ways for everybody. For myself, it's my body temple, and
Yeah.
whether I will feel like, I can feel that it just doesn't feel right. Like, or either I can walk into an area and it just the vibration of it, yeah, or I may get sick, there may be illness or whatever because I'm out of alignment. Some people, it may show up in their relationships, it may show up in money, and it will show up in different ways. So we each have our own path of discovery that will tell us that, we are not in alignment.
Yes. So
Right.
the flip, like, how do you feel, or I guess it's a feeling, or how do you feel or know when you are in alignment or heading towards alignment?
Okay. Well, if I can, let me begin with, you will, I talk a lot about the intersection. And so if you will, think about standing in the middle of an intersection and there's many different, you have 4 different paths you can go. And in front of you may be the truth, right? Behind you is paradox, 2 different things also being true. And
Mm-hmm.
then you have doubt and then you have faith, or you have, love and you have fear. So it may be different things in this intersection, but the truth is when you stand in the middle of that intersection,
Mm-hmm.
that is when you are and you can embrace the power of living aligned. And is what do you do when you're in that intersection? Do you move forward? Do you stand still? Are we stagnant? And for many of us and all of us, all of that is true. Sometimes we need to take that pause. sometimes we need to take that sacred pause and
Yeah.
determine what that is we do. So do we go into spiritual practice, right? Do we connect with a practitioner, a spiritual coach, a minister to help us with that alignment to move forward? And so that's how I think that is where the power is we're recognizing where we are,
Yes.
that recognition. Are there limiting beliefs, and what is it that we are choosing, right?
Right.
Understanding that, and what steps do we take, or do we stand still for a moment?
Yeah. Yeah. I like that
Right.
word, the words sacred pause,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
because sometimes you have to pause sometimes just to be able to think, to be able to
Yes.
like see, to think. And that's a really wonderful theme, the idea of taking a sacred pause. Sometimes it's better to do nothing, just to be
Yes.
still for a moment, or
Mm-hmm.
to get your bearings almost.
And in that pause, when we're in that pause, I believe that is when we do our work. Right?
Yes.
That is when we do our work. That is when I've had times where I'm in that pause, where it's just meditation and journaling.
Yep.
I have, for myself, things begin to happen organically.
Yes.
Like for example, I'll give you an example. I used to kind of schedule an inner retreat, and then I recognized that the way and the flow of my life, I live my life in quarters, right? So just like you have different quarters in the year.
Yeah.
And the inner retreats were happening organically during those quarters. And when I say inner retreat, going within, taking that time, taking that sacred pause, and it may be a few days, a week, or just a day,
Hmm.
where time for visioning, time for writing and journaling, and just tapping in, right,
Yeah.
to whatever it is that's seeking me, especially through visioning. So those are some of the ways of which you and things that you can do during that sacred pause,
Yeah.
during when you're in that intersection, right?
Yes, I love it. I love
Yeah.
it because there's the concept. Lots of times, I know Ernest Holmes, Neville Goddard, several other New Thought leaders, or even when we're in service or whatever, before meditation, we're like, let's go into the silence.
Yes.
But that's part of the
Yes.
sacred pause. Sometimes it's that
Mm-hmm.
silence. Like
Yes.
you said, like being. I like the idea of the analogy of being on a street, or even a busy street. Left, right, lights, this, that. Like which way? Blah, 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 blah.
Mm-hmm.
Like hey, it's like I need a pause.
Yeah.
I need a break. I need to do that. And the
Absolutely.
answers
That
are there. Mhm.
right. That intersection, and also that's when you can embrace the what I call living a line, a way of being.
Okay, yes. Let's talk
Right.
about that, because you named your ministry Living
Mm.
Alive, right?
Right. Living a line virtual ministry, and
Yes, and
right.
that this plays right into kind of the next question or area I wanted to go into, with the alignment, and
Mm-hmm.
also you're big also on like speaking your truth, being your truth, which I guess alignment and truth are the same thing almost, right? So so
Yes.
so the ministry that you chose, the sort of that alignment, that spiritual alignment. Can you just tell us a little bit about like the calling, the decision to go in that direction, and also, well, we can get into that too, but that it's an online, which I love that concept, that's what's
Mm-hmm.
different about your ministry in a way.
Yes. Okay. So first, how did I decide, or
Yes,
how did Living a Line choose me?
yes, yes, that's exactly
Yeah.
right.
How did it choose me? There was, hmm. Okay, so I think about when I first even thought about living in alignment
Hmm.
and my life's journey. And it was at a time when, before I can even put it to words, of what to be able to put words to it or pen to paper, is when I was growing up.
Mhm.
Okay. And when I was growing up, I grew up in New Jersey, and our family moved quite a bit. And there was something in me knew that there was something better, that there was something that I was in alignment with, and I didn't know what it was. And
Mhm.
I had not yet discovered or developed and nurtured my personal relationship with the God of my understanding.
Mhm.
But that is exactly what I was doing without knowing it. So I knew that there was something more, and I knew that I was in alignment with it, even though everything in my life seemed to be out of alignment, as a
Wow.
youngster.
Wow.
And so as I became an adult, and and I still am a spiritual life coach, I was at an event, and I literally seen myself. You know how you can see yourself out of in your mind's eye? I
Yes.
seen myself walking, my grown self, walking myself hand in hand, my younger self, by the hand, and we were walking into alignment, you know?
Wow.
And so I recognized that there was something that the younger me, my younger self needed to know, that I needed to nurture, you know,
Wow.
that part of me. And so I understand that there are many different aspects of our life
Mhm.
that when people see us and however we show up, that they may only see a part of us, right?
Yeah.
However, there are many different aspects in our relationships and how we show up, our education, the work we do in the world, the voice and how we share our voice. There are many different ways. So how do we live aligned with all of who we are
Yes.
and live aligned with spiritual principle and live forward in the midst of anything that's going on in
Yeah.
our life? Yeah.
And I have found that sometimes let's say there's so many different areas in life. There's
Mm-hmm.
relationships, there's money, there's career,
Mm-hmm.
there's this
Mm-hmm.
health. Something might be in alignment, but then something isn't. Like, that one area can be, but
Mm-hmm.
what generally happens, even if one is like very much out of alignment, it
Mm-hmm.
affects all the others too. So that's sort of what you're
Yes.
describing, like sort of an overall alignment, no matter what's happening, is what's
Mm-hmm.
important also. Because you might be great in one area, doing great in one area or whatever, but are you really aligned if this other area is in shambles or
Right.
something, right?
Right. And to understand, here's another thought. To understand that alignment doesn't always mean that everything is perfect.
True. True.
Is what are you aligning with as well?
Yeah.
So are you aligning with limiting belief? Are you aligning with the truth of who you are? And that's the spiritual aspect as well.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly right. That's a
Mhm.
good point. Like, alignment doesn't mean that it's an alignment into perfection. You might be aligning with the wrong, like, I don't want to say the wrong thing, but if whatever's appearing is what you're aligning with, right?
Right.
Right.
And
So that's important to be mindful and be aware.
hmm as I share on my podcast, we are always living, so choose to live aligned. you know so we're in every moment we're making a choice, and we are always choosing. And a way to live in alignment, right, is to practice the ways of being. And so some of those ways of being are to embrace choice, creativity, curiosity,
Yes.
right,
Yes.
mindfulness, non-attachment.
Hmm.
Those are a couple of them. Self-awareness and self-discovery are definitely one. And self-renewal. And we can do that through spiritual practice. We can do that through practicing gratitude,
Yes.
and different
Yes.
practices.
Yes. Yes. And I love that idea of embracing choice.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I know you and I have spoken privately, and even on another broadcast about that, about like that we have choice, and sometimes
Yes.
we don't realize that, but that is a part of living aligned, like you said,
Mm-hmm.
embracing choice. I love that sentiment.
Indeed. And speaking about choice, one of the reasons why we are a virtual ministry,
Yes.
but
Yeah.
yeah, and we also meet in Fayetteville as well.
So that was my next question. Like, you chose online
Mm-hmm.
virtual ministry. So
Right,
tell us
right.
about that choice.
Okay. We're in Centers for Spiritual Living. we have many different or several different forms of community. And our ministry is a focus ministry, and it's a virtual focus ministry. And why is it focused, and what do we focus on? Of course, living in alignment.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And it is, for me, remember I said that there are many different aspects of the person.
Yes.
And so what I bring, my unique abilities and my unique skills is that I'm retired military, so I bring the leadership aspect,
Yes.
right? Business, and so I bring the business aspect, and also,
Toastmasters too, right?
excuse me?
Toastmasters.
Right, Toastmasters, the speaking aspect, Toastmasters,
Yeah.
and of my MBA, so the business aspect, and of course as minister, but also what many people know about me, I guess you would consider me a baby boomer techie. So I really enjoy technology,
Yeah.
and as I shared before earlier, when I began on this path, there was nothing in Fayetteville. There was no center in Fayetteville. And
Yes.
so my path has been to travel out to other communities, whether it was an hour and a half away or 3 hours away to Charlotte one
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
And I truly believe in everybody being supported wherever they are. And geography should not limit a person's spiritual journey.
Right.
So that's one of the reasons why we're virtual.
And you know what's interesting is that way back in the day when you were starting, I guess your studies and this sort of thing, like you
Mm-hmm.
said, it was, everything was kind of far away,
Yes.
and that was, I'm sure, I don't want to say a burden, but a kind of a burden, to always have to do these long drives and all this and that. But this is an example where you took something, and I see this a lot in my own life and other people's lives, for instance, something
Mm-hmm.
that was like that appeared to be like a negative or a challenge, right?
Mm-hmm.
And wow, you turned that all around, and you identified. It's almost like this is a business practice almost, like you identified a need or a
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
niche, right? And like, wow, why should that be an obstacle, distance be an obstacle almost,
Mm-hmm.
and so I love the idea of the online ministry, because
Yeah.
it's like, what that was like for you, having to do the travels and all this stuff, and now this is your passion, bringing people together online, and
Yes.
and the miracle of the modern technology allows that. And I think that also, like, technology sometimes gets a bad rap, online dating, anyone? No, no. Could get a bad rap. There's a lot of negative things that go on,
Mm-hmm.
also, bullying
Mm-hmm.
and this and that. But the fact is that it can be used for good, just like anything else. It's a neutral,
Yes.
forum. But to use it in such a way as you are, I think it's just wonderful, and just combining your passions, of technology, of bringing people together regardless of location.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a wonderful thing. Yeah. So can you tell us a little bit more about it? Because I know, as far as either the broadcast or the podcast or the
Mm-hmm.
groups and that sort of thing, that is the ministry.
That the intention for our ministry, Living Aligned Virtual Ministry, is to help individuals align and awaken to their own spiritual magnificence.
Wonderful.
Right, wherever there may be. And our mission is to inspire sacred conversations that lead to self-discovery, and facilitate classes that evokes curiosity, right? And to empower life alignment through the practical use of these principles. So what we do is, yes, we are sharing the science of mind principles and the classes, and the different paths to the different ways we share, all with the thought in mind for people to be able to use it in a practical way. And so beyond the theory of what we're teaching, right, and apply those practices and those principles to our life, right? So how do we do that? Through podcasts, through the Living Aligned, Living Forward podcast, which I speak to just people who are practicing, people who are living and sharing how they live their lives aligned and how they practice this teaching or whatever teaching, new thought teaching they have, or how they live their lives and how they do. So people get to see a practical example. We have our online gatherings. So right now, currently, we have Sacred Moments, which is a way for people to connect with us, and we're online through Crowdcast. We set our intention for the week. So we begin our week, whatever the theme or the topic of the week is, and we speak about that. We do our meditation, contemplation, and we set our intention for the week. Wednesday, we have Wisdom Wednesday, where we are taking a deeper dive into that topic, and that is also on Crowdcast. So we do that on Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we also have book studies and certificated classes. And we have several different ways in which to connect. And we also have a private community, which is on Slack, and where people can connect. And even when we're doing classes, they have a private channel in which they can connect. And it's very supportive to be able to have these open conversations on how do we apply this practice.
Right.
Right.
Yes. Awesome.
Right.
Now,
all on-demand classes as well are on the way.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah.
Yes. And that's using
Teachable
technology.
Yes.
That's so awesome. That's so awesome. Now you do sometimes have in-person community also sometimes. Can you tell us about that for some people that are local?
Right. So we have in-person gatherings, and we have those once a month, and then we also have other workshops as well. And so we have them here in Fayetteville. One that we always have is Sacred Conversations, and that's the first Saturday of every month. And then we have workshops, and we meet at the Haymount Healing and Wellness in Fayetteville.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So we'll probably wrap things up in a few minutes, but if somebody watching this, if they feel or recognize like, heck, I am out of alignment, I'm all over the place, or I'm a mess or whatever, what advice would you give just to get them started and maybe into a more aligned way of being? Like, what could they do if somebody like really is just feeling just, out of sorts and just, out of alignment? What could they do?
It's a great question. Well, it's similar to what I shared earlier. Take a moment, be still.
Nice.
Determine and recognize where you are, and what are you experiencing? What beliefs are you experiencing? What are your next steps? What is it that you want to know? And often when we are experiencing something such as fear in the many forms that it shows up, the polar opposite of fear is love. Right? And to be able to embrace that. And if you're already in this teaching, what I highly recommend is affirmative prayer. Right?
Yes, that's one of our.
And so to practice, affirmative prayer, and all of the other spiritual tools that you can use, such as journaling, being in gratitude, and all of to use your spiritual practices, and mostly to connect with the community. Right?
Yes.
To connect with the community and the spiritual practitioner, right? Whose life's work is to listen, to help, and to support and provide spiritual guidance. For someone to do that.
Great. That's wonderful. Wonderful. So, so in closing, do you want to just tell us about any upcoming projects or anything that's that Spirit's calling from you?
Yes, upcoming projects. I have a book that I am working on. Well, actually 2 books, but I'm called to really focus on the book of doing less to become more.
Oh.
Yes.
Is that the name of your book or your?
Yes.
Nice.
That's the name of the book. Doing less to become more. Because one of the things with living in alignment is allowing yourself that space. And allowing those margins in your life, and in how you practice that. So that's going to be um,
I love
really
that.
good. Yeah, it's going to be a wonderful book and a way to practice. And also, the other thing that I'm doing is I'm getting ready to launch, like yourself, the online and on-demand classes, right, through Teachable. Yeah,
Awesome.
yeah.
Wow. So that's so great, Marie. Thank you for the work that you're doing, for these projects, for your presence in the world, holding the truth for so many people every day. It's really just wonderful. And I'm just so thankful for you. I'm so thankful for our friendship, and just so thankful for the work that you're doing. So thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for having me on, and I look forward to our continued journey together.
Yes,
Yes,
me too.
thank you. Peace and
Blessings.
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 Yes.